Does anyone need more time? Are you guys all done? Still needing more time? Okay, maybe then just 1 more minute. Yeah, please finish by then. Okay, so I think we have a lot of interesting stuff to cover today. And yeah, let's first go through our homework. And yeah, I didn't have enough time to read or check all your submissions, but maybe halfway through them, and then yeah, it was quite interesting, and I enjoyed reading your submissions, and sometimes I also learned something from your submissions as well. Yeah, and then so let's look at the first problem. So it's related to kernel-based or similarity kernel-based binary classifier. So kernel classification or kernel-based classifier is one representative example is a support vector machine, right? But even before thinking about complicated processes in a support vector machine, I just wanted to ask you guys to think about kind of a simple and intuitive settings and design your own kind of simple kind of similarity kernels that that works as a radius neighbor classifier. And I think many of you guys gave a correct answer in your submissions, but sometimes some student gave up, and also some student thought about it too seriously, or in a kind of complicated manner, by just trying to define some Gaussian or radial basis kernel kind of thing. Okay, so I myself didn't have a chance to write the correct answer, or the best answer, but let me just try to write the answers. Okay, so you guys know how this epsilon radius neighbor classifier works, right? So if epsilon was maybe 3 centimeter, and then given our high dimensional space, okay, so given our test point here, and then we think of this circle or kind of hypersphere that has the radius as a epsilon, which is at 3 centimeter. I'm just introducing kind of a little bit intuitive, but intuitive kind of distance measure, and then within this radius, suppose we had this many points, and then maybe these 2 negative points, and then within that radius we count those points falling inside of these radius, and then do some majority voting, right? And this is the epsilon radius classifier. So the only difference from the k nearest neighbor classifier is that we consider k nearest neighbors in terms of their ranked, or basically the nearest neighbors. So this radius, or this radius, of course, is not fixed. So suppose you have a bunch of data around here. So it can have a negative and positive labels data, but sometimes you may have a really outlier as your test data. So in this case, you will still consider this k nearest neighbor classifier, right? In terms of the k, literally k nearest neighbors in terms of their ranked order, but in this fixed epsilon kind of radius k nearest neighbor, so we only look at the fixed those points within the fixed distances. And so in this case, we have no points at all, and so I don't know what to answer in this case, but I just wanted to highlight the difference between this epsilon radius based and k nearest neighbor classifier. And then in this case, so let me give just the solution directly. So this guy can be defined as 1, 0 if xtr I minus xt and their distance as a norm is less than epsilon or equal to epsilon. Otherwise it will be 0, right? And then so if we have a maybe 10 training examples, so we have a 6 inside here, and then maybe 3 of them are outside, and then another one being here. So in total we have a 10 training example. Okay, so we will have a 10 different terms here, right? Because we are iterating from I through n, right? N is the number of training examples, and then here, we only specify the similarity between the test point, which is a fixed point, and then each of our training example as 1 if it is within a certain predefined radius, and 0 otherwise. Okay, and then we now have to do some majority voting, right? And then our final classification rule is, so here it is, right? So if our total function is positive or non-negative, and then we classify it as a positive one, and then otherwise it will be 0. And so we now have to determine this alpha i's, okay, alpha i's. But Yeah, some people or some students actually define the alpha i's as the one dependent on xtr or xt. I mean both of them. Yeah, but this alpha I should be only dependent on, for example, the training example, not on the test data, right? Yeah. So if alpha I is changing, yeah, depending on this kind of condition being satisfied or not, yeah, it is kind of incorrect answer, because alpha I shouldn't be dependent on the test data, right? And then the final answer for alpha I is really simple. It's 1 if ytr no yeah ytr I is positive, and if it is negative, okay, so if it is negative class, and then it will be defined as 0, right? -1 here, okay. So in that case, it's doing the majority voting, right? So in this case, if we had 4 pluses and 2 minuses, right, and then we first just set their similarity as non-zero value as all ones, right? And then if we just multiply, when adding them together, if we just multiply it by 1, if it is positive 1, and then if it is a negative classes, and then if we multiply -1, and then the total will be like 4, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 -1 -1 being equal to 2 plus 2 or positive 2, and thus it will be classified as positive classified, right? Yep, so this is the answer. Okay, and then this is the final answer, which will give which will get a full credit. Although I'm not gonna be very strict or very picky about your grading your homeworks, but we can think about a little bit more elegant expression about it. So some of the students gave really a great answer in that aspect. So in that case, so this guy. So first, this k, or kernel function, or our similarity function, is represented by this form, but it has these two different expressions depending on this if statement. So for this, we can use something called this indicator function. Okay, indicator function. So this indicator function is quite similar to kind of a delta function kind of thing. So so it is defined as this. So this boldface 1, and then some subscript a, and a is a kind of a set, but at the same time, a can be represented as a condition that satisfies this set. Okay. So in the when defining a set, there were 2 different ways when studying it in maybe middle school. What was that? 이런 얘기까지 할 필요는 없을 것 같긴 한데, 집합 정의하는 방법이 2가지가 있었죠. 뭐가 있었죠? 중고등학교 때. 네, 그거 맞아요. 네, 그렇죠. 저거. 네. 원소나요법 그리고 조건제시법. So instead of just listing of all these elements, we can just represent a set as the condition or requirement to satisfy. I mean, for these elements satisfying this, to be included in the set. So, so this A is basically a set, but we usually represent A in terms of their condition or requirement. So, so overall, this function is defined as 1 if the given X input is belonging to the predefined set A, and then otherwise it is 0. So it can be also represented as 1 here, right? And then we basically bring this condition over here. right? So what is the input? Input is xt, right? So we can cleanly express mathematically like this definition of this kernel function, right? And then also we can represent this alpha i's in or a more elegant manner. So yeah, so this is not a unique answer, by the way. If this one is maybe 0.5 and then this one is negative 0.5, it will be the same, right? So you guys know, yeah, you guys get the idea, right? So it doesn't lose any kind of generality kind of thing. So in this case, alpha i's can be also defined. So yeah, I don't exactly remember where we used the this same trick, but it can be also defined as this. Okay, so it is represented as this a simple or just a single equation, right? So if you just plug in 1 or 0, then you can see it is the same as this guy, right? Okay, so so sometimes this way of representing a mathematical expressions in a single form is quite crucial or very important. Okay, so when was this kind of trick or this kind of thing? Yeah, when was it also used? I mean, among the very basic classifiers that we studied. Can anyone give an answer? So there are answers among these. So let me see. Okay. So this one, logistic regression. Where was this kind of trick used? So if you're not kind of familiar or if you forgot about the formulation, or I mean the objective function and how to derive that objective function, yeah, please go back and then yeah, study carefully about it. And then it is something like this. So let's see. So depending on the alpha values, we use a two different loss function in the case of logistic regression. If it is a positive one, and then the predicted value should be closer to 1, and then if it is closer to 0, and then it will have an infinitely large loss function value, right? And that function is defined by this one. And then this guy is the like a flipped one vertically, right? Like this one, right? So if it is a negative classes, and then the loss will be 0 when our output or predicted output will be 0, and then if it is close to 1, and then it will be infinite value. And then the reason why we have the range of the predicted value as from 0 to 1 is because we applied the sigmoid function, right? That transforms infinite ranges of values into the range from 0 to 1, right? Okay, so we had these two different loss function, I mean definition, depending on the y values, and then how we combined them was by following this form, right? So we had a one loss function, so we had a minus here, and the first and the second loss function depending on the y value or the y binary label, and so it is either 1 or 0, and thus we just did a simple trick of using this one. So if y is 1, and then it will be 1, and then this one will become 0, and then if it is 0, and then this one will become 1, right? So yeah, this kind of simple but really smart trick is sometimes really useful when deriving something, or maybe your own building of your own theory. Okay, so there was a trick that we used here, and then so you now know the answer for this problem. And then if we consider k nearest neighbor classifier, right, and then only this condition part will change, right? So if xtr of an I is within the, yeah. So in that case, let's try to modify this with the smallest modification. And then this one can be changed in case of the k nearest neighbor. Okay, and then yeah, this one can be set as like xtr. Yeah, I don't know what. I was trying to mean the case closest data items distance. Okay, so if it is using 5 nearest neighbor, and then we pick up the exact fifth nearest neighbor, and then measure the distance, and that measure will be placed in that epsilon. So in that case, epsilon is not fixed, right? And so it's dependent on the xt, right? But still, we can define the k-nearest neighbor classifier in the same manner. And then also, this is a similarity kernel, which is really a simple form. So it will be all ones, right? The similarity will be all ones if it's inside of the boundaries, right? But we can also think about changing these similarities. So what if we assign more similarity values to a closer point? I mean, even if these 6 data points are all inside of our epsilon radius boundaries, but we can assign a different ways, right? Of the different values of the similarities when computing this Gaussian kernels, right? And then also, apart from or beyond this majority voting, I mean, we implemented the majority voting by just alpha i's setting, by just setting them as either positive 1, negative 1, right? But we can also think about real valued coefficient for them, right? And that way we can gradually become closer and closer to kernel support vector machine. So overall, the support vector machine will have kernel-based support vector machine will have the same form, but they have a complicated kind of ways of defining this similarity value, which is based on our Gaussian kernel, right? And then this alpha i's based on this like determining the support vectors. Okay, so that was the first problem. And then let's move on to the second problem. I believe, although there are many typos because I didn't, carefully, I'm usually very careless, unfortunately, so I may have introduced a lot of an error. But anyways, so I just wanted you guys to follow the derivations by your hand, right? And so I believe all of you had no problem in deriving the first problem, first subproblem A. And then altogether, this is our conclusion, right? This is our gradient. So in the second question, I asked you guys to give an intuitive explanations about it, right? So in this case, so we want to maximize this probability, right? So this is the, semantically, this has the meaning of the probability of seeing a particular word. So I study mass, and then suppose this one is center word, and then this one is a context word, and then we want to maximize or increase the probability of seeing mass given the center word study, right? So mass is this guy, observed word, and study is corresponding to this center word. It's not a context word, right? And then as a center word, we pick up the vector, and then as a it's a center word vector, and then this UO is a context vector for this observed one, and then we compute the inner product as their similarity value, and then we compute such an inner product for all these context words in each of our vocabulary, right? And then we compute this relative probability, and then we try to maximize it, right? So that is the main intuition for this objective function. And then its gradient is derived as here, and so it is a gradient with respect to VC. So this gradient is used for updating VC, or the center word vector, right? And then so yeah, I just wanted to, so my initial intent, or my initial kind of intuition about it was as follows. So how do we use this gradient? How do we use this gradient? So we will typically use a gradient descent, right? And then what will be our gradient descent step? Vc will be Vc minus some step size times mu O. No, so it should be gradient ascent, because so this is the loss function, and this is log likelihood, but it is negative log likelihood because we wanted to minimize it, right? But this one is like we omitted this guy, right? So it is the one that we want to maximize, right? So the sign for our gradient ascent here in this case, it should be positive, right? But anyways, so it is defined by this, right? Okay, so so intuitively, so suppose UO and VC are all in the same dimensional space, and then we can just consider them placed in the same space. So suppose the current vector for VC is around here, and then suppose the current vector for UO is somewhere around here. Okay, so this is a UO and this is a VC. Okay, and in this case, so last time I mentioned that in order to make the inner product between these two vectors, so that way eventually we will increase this numerator, right? And then one way will be, based on our kind of cosine similarity kind of thing, we want to minimize the angle between them, right? And so one way will be like rotating it a little bit towards the UO. So this is a VC in UO, but this is not how we update it. But how we update it is as follows. So we have this vector. So rotating doesn't work in the typical gradient descent, because we always update the vector as an addition, right? Although there are some gradient descent updating method based on some multiplication. Okay, so there is a technique called a multiplicative updating. So there are also such kind of methods, but I'm not gonna mention about it. Maybe later in the future, if I have time, maybe I'll describe or explain about it. But anyways, so because we always add some vector to the existing vector, at least this UO is added. So if we have this vector, and then suppose our learning rate was 0.2, and then we will roughly have this length of the vector that has maybe 1/5 the length of the original vector, right? And then we add it to this vector, right? And then this one will be our new VC vector based on our gradient descent, right? So that way the angle became a little bit closer, right, from the previous case, right? So we are given one vector, and then we have another vector, and then we keep adding this vector to the first vector, and then this vector will their direction will keep switching towards the second vector, or the target vector, right? So that's how we increase the similarity or the inner product value between the two. And then but that's not the end. So that's not the end. So there is a this guy or this guy, and this guy this guy is what? This guy is what? So this guy, is quite similar. Has a similar form as the attention module in the deep learning context. So, so suppose VC was maybe 1, 2, And then suppose we have three words in our vocabulary. Okay, so suppose our dictionary is containing 3 words in total, and suppose their vector is like maybe -1 1 and 0 1 and maybe 1 0. Okay, and then how do we compute the attention module, or at least how do we compute this guy? Okay, let me give an example. Okay, so this was corresponding to what? In the previous lecture, oops, let's see. Okay, where was it? Ah, yeah, this one. Okay, maybe not this one. The second one. Yeah, I forgot where. Yeah, I'm having a trouble. Yeah, so I'm just redrawing this neural net architecture of the word2vec, and then you guys remember that we have 2 matrices. So the collection of a word vector as a center word, and the collection of a word vector as a context word, right? And so these three vectors are corresponding to these W2, right? So here, like we have a 2 dimension here, and then since we have a vocabulary size as 3, we have a 3 node here. Okay, and then how we compute this this guy is based on like performing the inner product first, right? So the inner product value will be like what, 1, right, and 2 and 1. Is it correct, right? And then we exponentiate it, right? And then we make them as a sum to 1 vector, right? So it's like 2.5 and 6 and 2.5, and then altogether it will be 11 over 2.5, and this one will be the probability associated with this vector, right? And then this one will be used as a weight to compute the weighted average of this guy. So expectation is basically a weighted average, right? And so that weighted average is something like this: 2.5, 11, 6, and 11, 2.5. So these are the associated weight vectors based on the cosine similarity and their softmax operation, and then we add them together, right? And then altogether, this guy is the vector over here, right? So the intuitive understanding or the meaning of this vector is as follows. So before getting the information, I mean, we do not know yet what the observed word is. So like where was it? Yeah, so suppose we are only given this word, center word study, and not observing yet before observing the context word. Okay, so in that case, what will be our expected word vector as a context word? Okay, so that context word will be computed as this weighted average, right? And then this vector, overall this vector, the similarity from the center vector and this vector should be minimized. Okay, so looking at this figure, I mean this expression, so you can kind of intuitively kind of understand that we want to make this vector closer to this one, but farther from this one, right? So this one is a kind of a average vector that we expect before getting the information of the actual observed word, such as a mass, right? So 네. 네. 네, 그렇죠. 이게 VC고요. 이게 이제 UW 있죠? UW. 그래서 이게 U1, U2, U3. Okay, so this is the kind of expect the average vector that we expect, right? So this one should be minimized, right? I mean, the similarity from the center word to this word should be minimized, or it may not be a little intuitive, but if we think about it in this manner, so we can think about this guy as a single vector, okay? So we had this UO, the actually observed word vector, right? And then suppose we had maybe over here, which is our kind of expected word context word vector, right? So this is the kind of word vector as a context vector that we expect before given the actual word vector, right? So this was our expectation. So we expect that vector, but we actually observed this vector, and then we considered this difference vector, right? And then from that difference vector, we just multiply the learning rate, and then from here we go, it doesn't look parallel, so we go this direction. Okay, so this is how we update this vector. Okay, and then it's also somewhat related to this properties of a softmax. So in the case of softmax, so this guy. So of course we want to increase this guy, right? So we want to increase this guy, which is the inner product between the center word and the actually observed context word, right? But what if similarities of this center word to other vectors are still high? Okay, so it is all relative, right? So even if it is a large, so suppose it is 100, okay, but the inner product with the other vectors are maybe 1,000 and maybe 10,000, and then this one will have a small, relatively a small probability, right? So if those values overall should be smaller, right? So that kind of a relative relative notion of this softmax vector is also related to this guy. Okay, and then this was my expected answer, not probabilistic expectation, but that was the initial kind of intent of preparing for this problem. Okay, but when looking at your answers, I found that people or some of the students gave some answers like this. Okay, so this is a gradient, right? So if we do not use a gradient descent, but if we do the kind of closed form solution, what is the closed form solution? We just so like so suppose we have an so suppose we have this function. So we want to minimize it, and then with respect to x. Okay. So there are two different ways of solving this problem. So the first one is just taking the derivative, which is our gradient, and set it as 0, right? It will give a answer directly. Or if we just use a gradient descent anyways, although in this case we have that kind of closed form solution that gives just the solution directly by just one-time process. So that is called a closed form solution. But if we use the gradient descent, how do we do that? So suppose we started from maybe 5, okay, and then what will be the gradient? It's this guy. So this is dx df, right? And then let's evaluate the gradient at this point. Okay, what will be the gradient? It's 8, right? So 5 negative minus and the learning rate times 8. So this one will give 4.2. And overall in our mountain here, so we started from here, and then based on the gradient at this point, right? And then we moved towards the left a little bit, right? So this is our gradient descent update is done, is performed, right? So we do it iteratively so that we can reach the minimum possible point, right? Okay, so so this was my intent, original intent. But sometimes, I mean, some people or some students thought about this sensor. So yeah, so by just setting it as 0, okay, it should have U0. This guy, right? So this will be our closed form solution. And eventually, if we get to get closer and closer to the final converged solution, naturally this gradient will become 0, just like this example. So as we move towards the end, or this minimum point, the gradient will naturally be diminished, or it will become closer to 0, right? And then at that point, we will have a perfectly 0 gradient, which corresponds to this equation, right? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? So maybe like an hour ago, I had no idea. I kept thinking about the meaning of it, and then I think I kind of found the meaning of it. Yeah, partially. Yeah. So when will it be achieved? When will it be achieved? What will be our ideal situation? What will be our perfectly perfect solution for this objective function? Okay, so yeah, let me give a hint. So it is like mu0 equals mu1 and mu2 and mu3. So these are these three vectors: -1, 1, 0, 1, and 1, 0. So these are u1, u2, u3, right? And then the expectation, as I mentioned, it is represented as a weighted average, right? And then what is that weighted average? Intuitively, although it's computed as a kind of a softmax function, we can view it as a kind of relative probability or relative kind of similarity. So similarity between Vc and u1, and similarity Vc comma u2, similarity Vc u3. Sorry about the poor handwriting, but you get the idea, right? So these are defined as what? This guy, right? This is how we define the weight, right? Okay, and then yeah, so it's not 0 or not. So it is a observed keyword, right? So suppose we have a 3 keywords in total in our vocabulary, and then I study math is the first, second, and third keywords in our dictionary, and then the observed word is math, and so it should be 3, right? So this u3 is actually the u3 on the right hand side, right? So how can we satisfy this equation in terms of these? 그렇죠. So the similarity should be 0, 0, and 1, right? So this is a kind of one of the really simplest form that we can satisfy this, right? And then what does that mean? That means V3 has the similarity with the U3 perfectly, like an infinitely large number. And then for the similarity between V3 and U2 and U1 should be infinitely small number, or negative infinite number, in terms of the inner product, right? So that way, after doing the softmax, it will give us 0, 0, and 1, right? Okay, so in this case, so here, what do we update here in this case? So we update Vc, right? Because this is the gradient with respect to Vc, right? So this is used for updating Vc. So U1, U2, U3 are considered as a kind of fixed point somewhere in our space. So yeah, maybe U1, U2, and U3. Okay, and then we want to carefully manipulate our VC, so that we can satisfy this equation. I mean, the point here, I mean, the what I was trying to say was that, I mean, there are other possible solutions, because which is U1, U2, U3 if all of them are the same, and then it will be also satisfied as well, regardless of this similarity value, right? So this is another solution, right? But I'm trying to say that this is not the case, and this is not something that we can achieve, because we want to, we can control VC, but not U1, U2, U3, at least in this gradient, right? Okay, so that was the 네. 네. 네, 맞아요. 그래서 이거는 이제 업데이팅을 VC, 그러니까 이게 끝이 아니에요. 여기가 스토리가 끝이 아니고, 저 U들에 대해서도 구해야 돼요. 우리가. U1, U2, U3에 대해서 구하고, 실제로 이제 여기 뉴럴넷에서 백프롭 관점에서 보면 여기서의 로스가 이쪽으로 흐르면서 얘가 업데이트되고, 그 다음에 이쪽으로 흐를 때는 여기가 원합 벡터가 되기 때문에 여기서 어떤 특정 로만 업데이트 된다 그랬죠. 그죠? 근데 지금 이거를 그냥 오브젝트 펑션 크게 두고 거기서 그냥 그레디언트 디센트 막 해갖고, 근데 거기서 분명히 합성함수 미분들을 여러분들이 썼어요. 그렇죠? 뭐 이렇게 로그 이렇게 있으니까 여기 덩어리 앞쪽으로 빼갖고 디노미네이터로 만들고 분의 1로 만들고, 그게 다 소프트맥스 미분을 한 거고요, 여러분들이. 그 컴퓨테이셔널 그래프에서 소프트맥스 미분해서 넘어온 거고, 그 다음에 또 이쪽으로 뭐 이렇게 쿵짝쿵짝 해갖고 또 한번 넘어온 거예요. 그래서 결국 우리는 그레디언트를 저 W1 매트릭스에 있는 그 특정 컬럼, 그러니까 우리 그 센터 워드에 대한 고놈에 대한 그레디언트를 그냥 열심히 유도해갖고 구한 거예요. 근데 이제 그냥 뉴럴넷의 백프롭 관점에서 보면 저거는 일단 저쪽에서 W2를 업데이트를 해서 저놈을 한번, 그러니까 백프롭을 한번 흘려줘서 W2를 싹 업데이트 해주고, 그 다음에 이제 그 전 레이어로 넘어오면서 W1에서의 고놈을 업데이트를 하는 거예요. 그래서 지금 이야기한 것처럼 저 W2도 싹 업데이트가 되고, 지금 여기서 이제 partial derivative 혹은 gradient 얘에 대해서만 구할 게 아니라 저걸 이제 U1, U2, U3 이걸 다 구해야 돼요. 혹은 이제 통으로 보면 저 매트릭스에 대한 그레디언트를 싹 다 구해서 저 W2를 통째로 한번 싹 업데이트를 해줘야 돼요. 그리고 그거는 이제 직관적으로 보면 아까 얘기했던 것처럼 VC를 고정시키고 U들이 뭔가 가까워지고 멀어지고 하는 거예요. 그리고 그거는 이제 저기서 하나하나에 대해서 그레디언트를 구해보면, 또 그리고 이런 식으로 유도를 한 후 그거에 대해서 직관적인 어떤 해석을 해보면 이제 그게 어떤 식으로 동작하는지를 알 수가 있습니다.
프리퀀시 같이 나오는 빈도수에 따라서 시뮬레이터가 모르는 비례해서 결정하는 학습이 되는.
그렇죠. 네. 잠깐만요. 그래서 네. So the student's question was related to the main difference, or the important difference between the count-based and the prediction-based methods, right? For the word2vec, right? So in the case of prediction-based method, so as we go, so if we move our sliding windows along the following the token sequences existing in our corpus, right? So we will do the gradient descent for the current window and then move it like one by one, right? So if one word appeared a lot more times than the other in our objective function, I mean that word, I mean we have to make the smaller errors for that frequently updated word, because that will be really frequently appearing, and thus that will be influencing our gradient step a lot more times than the more rarer word, right? 그래서 결론적으로는 뭐 자주 나타나면 일단은 두 가지가 있어요. 그러니까 이게 카운트 베이스드 메서드에는 자주 나타났다라는 이야기는, 그러니까 두 개가 자주 같이 나타났다는 이야기는 이 두 개 간의 시밀러리티가 높아야 된다는 이야기가 되고요. 또 동시에 한 워드만 놓고 봤을 때 이 워드가 다른 워드들에 비해서 더 프리퀀시가 높아요. 뭐 더나 이런 것들. 그러면 하여튼 얘에 대해서의 워드 벡터는 얘 워드 벡터는 하여튼 다른 애들보다 훨씬 더 많이 업데이트가 사용이 되기 때문에 그래서 얘는 좀 더 정확하게 우리가 자연스럽게 얘는 좀 더 정확하게 이걸 해줘야 된다는 것이고 따라서 얘도 많이 나타나고 또 같이 나타나는 얘도 많이 나타났다. 그러면 이제 다른 애들에 비해서 네, 좀 더 많이 업데이트가 된다 뜻이.
지금 이 업데이트 같은 경우는 글씨랑 그거랑 일단 비슷하게 되고 있습니다. 글씨 업데이트잖아요. 윈도우 들어가면서 내가 그렇게 되면은 결과적으로는 저희가 웨이트 1, 웨이트 2 쓰잖아요. 우리가 비슷한 값을 가지고
UO와 그다음 VC가
네, 뭐 그러니까 업데이트를 이제 그 벡터에 다 바꿔주고
네.
실내로 바꿔주고 하는 건데 결국에는 값 자체가 거의 비슷해지고 했을 때는
네.
이게 윈도우 슬라이딩 하면서 콘텍스트로 분석되었던 아이들이
네.
되고 그럼 결국에는 서로 UV, UV 비슷해지기 때문에
네.
결국 웨이트 1이랑 웨이트 2가 전체적으로 값이 굉장히 비슷해지고
네. 그런 것 같아요. 네. 그리고 심지어 이 한 번의 이터레이션에서도 지금 아까 질문한 것처럼 이거는 지금 VC를 업데이트하는 거고 지금 얘기했듯이 U들은 고정이에요. 그리고 UO, Actually Observed 된 워드에 가까워지도록 VC를 이렇게 옮기는 거예요. 물론 차이 벡터를 기준으로 하지만 그 다음에 저걸로 아까 얘기했던 것처럼 백프랍을 이 W2에 대해서 백프랍을 구하면 저거는 또 거꾸로 UO에 대한 그레디언트를 구하면 저거는 VC랑 가깝도록 업데이트가 돼요. 그때는 그러니까 VC가 고정, 그다음에 UO가 업데이트가 돼요. 그러니까 어떻게 보면 이게 좀 약간 용수철처럼 이렇게 같이 가는 거예요. 그 다음엔 또 그 옆으로 가면 또 이제 자격이 바뀌면서 또 Okay, so yeah, again, in this case, although we didn't derive the gradient with respect to UO or any other U vectors, but if we derive it, and then we will update UO and other vectors accordingly. So, for example, in the case of the UO, the log POC, yeah. So in this case, the gradient for this UO will be formed in a way that the vector for U0 is closer to fixed VC because in this case we consider VC as a constant. 네. 또 다른 질문 있나요? 네.
먼저 업데이트되는 거는 VC를 벡터 스페이스로 고정을 시켜 놓은 다음에 U5가 거기에 고정이 되고 그 다음에 앞에 W1 업데이트될 때는 그 조정된 U가 픽스 된 다음에 V가 조정이 된다라고 생각을 하면 돼요.
그것도 뭐 굉장히 좋은 질문인데 또 그게 또 네, 좋은 질문인데 또 이렇게 또 기초에 우리가 또 좀 약간 충실해야 되는데 또 그게 이제 그레디언트 디센트의 어떤 그 약간은 펀더멘털한 그 특성과 관련이 돼 있는데 자, 이 기본적으로 이게 So yeah, we are talking about the orders of the gradient descent update for in terms of our variables. So in this case, we consider the backprop flowing from the back to the top or to the starting point, right? So in this case, of course, we will update this guy first and then update this guy later on. And then, yeah, but in this case, is it really the sequential update? Or is it kind of a simultaneous update? So, in other words, the question is, so you updated a W2, for example, and then does it influence the updating on this U1? So in this form, it should be influencing, right? It should influence because in this case, in the U2, so they will be like all updated so that for example, UO to be closer to VC, right? So, for example, if we have a UO and VC, suppose in terms of a backprop, the the first order, yeah, I mean the first thing that we update is this guy. So it is updated this as this point, right? And then is the update on this VC based on this old point or this new point? So do we use old one or new one? We use an old one, right? We use old one. So yeah, so in these days let's see. Yeah, sometimes I have to teach the basic machine learning courses. Yeah, I mean, I'm just using Andrew Young's machine learning course slides shamelessly. And then let's look at the slides about the gradient descent. So this is a first few, like a very first slides that explains the gradient descent in the like a machine learning 101 kind of a lecture given by Andrew Young. Okay, so in this case, gradient descent is about this simultaneous update, but not about this sequential update. So in this case, yeah, so this is a linear regression model, which is just handling like this guy, theta 0 and theta 1 x. Okay, so we will, yeah, suppose theta 1, theta 0 and theta 1 had a vector of 1, 2, okay, and then suppose our gradient was 3, 4. Okay, and then yeah, of course, as we implement it as a for loop, and then we will update this guy first based on this gradient as maybe 0.1, right? And then we do not evaluate the gradient on this guy based on the new first coordinate or first parameter, right? So we still use the old one because this guy, this gradient value, was computed by using this old theta 0 value, right? So that is the point of our gradient descent, right? And so, yeah, so you will see the difference between these two pseudocode, right? The left one is correct. So at one time of an update, yeah, so we will use the fixed or previous parameter values. Yeah. But this guy, yeah, maybe some of my old students may know already, but there exists a optimization techniques that follows this guy. So this kind of strategy. So this is called what? 네, 뭐죠? 우리가 이제 gradient descent가 있고 이제 또 coordinate descent가 있어요. coordinate descent. Okay, so there are another kind of optimization technique called the coordinate descent. Okay, so coordinate descent is as something like this. So suppose we have this kind of mountain, like maybe some kind of this mountain. Okay, so suppose this kind of objective function. And then what we do was we start with some initial point, and then we compute the gradient, and then gradient will give a particular direction, right, along the x and y axis, and then we update our new the position simultaneously by following that particular direction, right? But in the case of a coordinate descent, it is something like this. So suppose we are here, and then we first update only on the theta 1. So this is theta 1, and this is a theta 2, and then suppose we update only with respect to theta 1. So in that case, so y is equal to x squared and 2xy plus y squared, and maybe 2x 3y, maybe 1. So let's think about these two-dimensional function, okay? And then suppose we are like currently at the 1, 1, okay? And then what will be our gradient? 2x, 2y, 2 is our gradient with respect to x. And then 2i, 2i. Yeah, 2x plus 2y plus 3 is our gradient vector, right? So 1, 1 will have a gradient as 6 and 7, right? And then we will update it by using this, right? So this is the typical gradient descent, but the coordinate descent, it works as follows. So this is exactly following the incorrect case shown in this previous slides. Yeah, we actually follow that incorrect case, okay? So in that case, so instead of using updating it in this manner, we will update it like 0.1 times 6 and 0, for example. So we only update on the first coordinate, and then like the first coordinate will be 0.4 and still having the same value in the second coordinate, right? And then for this point, we now re-evaluate our gradient, right? And then what will be our gradient? 4.8, 5.8, right? And then we only use this guy to update the second coordinate. And then we take turns among these coordinates, okay? So this one is called a coordinate descent, but this one is not a correct optimization technique. So you shouldn't do that, okay? So if you want to use this coordinate descent optimization technique, where you update individual kind of parameters separately, one by one. In that case, one update should guarantee or should give the global optimal value. So in that case, what I mean is that geometrically you can view this kind of process as follows. So because we are updating data 1 only, so it can be viewed as like moving along this horizontal x-axis, or it's data 1 axis. So it's like going to this direction, right? And then so in that case the mountain was looking like this, okay? So that way the gradient was this guy, and then we moved that way, we moved to the right, okay? And then after moving to here, and then we can think of the new function because we are updating the second coordinate, and then we can also think about the mountains like this, right? And in this case, the new updating or this gradient value is corresponding to slope here, and then we do updating like this. So instead of just going like directly to like a certain direction, okay, it is like a zigzag form, right? Horizontally, vertically, horizontally, vertically, right? So this is called a coordinate descent. But in this coordinate descent, I mean, it's a much, so you will see that it's a much simpler method than the gradient descent. But in order to be able to use this simpler method, we need to have a additional guarantee or additional requirement that at each update along this horizontal or vertical axis, it should have the global minima, at least for that coordinate. So what that means is that, so suppose we have, along this this axis, let's go back to the very first update. So in this case, the mountain is looking like this, right? And then what will be the global minima along this mountain, which is just a one-dimensional mountain. So that one-dimensional mountain is, it will be something like this. It will be somewhere around here, right? So that will be the minimum, lowest possible point along that horizontal axis. We have to go to that point directly, okay, in the coordinate descent, okay? Okay, and then from here, we cut this mountain vertically, and then we also go to the global minimum value at this point. Okay. So if we can guarantee that we can find this global minimum on this each of our sub-problem. I mean, I call this as a sub-problem because we are initially having like a two-dimensional optimization, right? But we are dividing it into two small sub-problems where we update each coordinate individually and treating all the other values as a constant, right? Now, how do we find this global minima at each coordinate update? So it is really simple. So so given this current point, where do we use this value? So we usually plug this value into our gradient vector, right? So that's when we plug our current position into, right? But in this case, let's consider this function along the horizontal axis. So that is corresponding to like this guy. So we are plugging all the other variables' value into our objective function themselves. Okay, so so if we plug 1 in the place of an y, okay, so y will be x squared and 2x plus 1 plus 2x plus 3 plus 1. So this is the result of our objective function when plugging the value of an 1 in the place of an y, right? So this, that function is actually this mountain, when cutting this mountain horizontally and then looking at this like a shape, okay? And then in this case we have no problem of finding the global minima, and here we don't use the gradient descent, which is we don't use an iterative method. We just use a closed form solution by just taking the derivative and then setting it as 0 and then obtain the solution, and that point will be corresponding to this guy. Okay, so it will be like -2, right? So this point will be -2 and 1. So overall, 1, 1 was changed into and updated into -2 and 1, and at least this guy is the global optimum along this horizontal line. So this is a coordinate descent. So if we guarantee that we can find the global optima for each of our sub-problems, and then this coordinate descent will work. I mean, will guarantee you the reaching the local minimum. Okay, so all we want to do by using this optimization technique, whether it's a gradient descent or coordinate descent and so on, is to be able to reach the not global, but the local minima, right, from a particular starting point. And so gradient descent, I mean, as long as unless the learning rate is too high, we always reach the local minima by using the gradient descent. There is a theoretical proof, I believe, but also when using this coordinate descent, which is a simpler version of the gradient descent, if we can guarantee, if we have a constraint that each sub-problem we will use a global optimum value, and then such an iterative process will move us, or will bring us to the local minimum point. Okay. Any questions so far? 네. 네, 이게 또 실제로 내가 거의 좀 박사 때부터 좀 뭐 아직까지도 또 많이 좀 그 약간 많이 하여튼 좀 하고 있는 연구 중에 하나가 이제 그 매트릭스 팩토라이제이션이라고 하는 분야가 있는데, 매트릭스 팩토라이제이션이 아마 저쪽 그 이제 월드 임베딩도 이제 매트릭스 팩토라이제이션이라고 볼 수가 있는데, 이제 A라는 매트릭스가 이렇게 있을 때 이제 이거를 이제 로우 랭크 팩토라이제이션으로 이렇게 하는 거거든요. 여기가 이제 n by n, 뭐 예를 들면 한 100 by 80, 그리고 여기는 100 by 5, 여기는 5 by 80, 이런 식으로의 랭크 5짜리 이제 매트릭스 팩토라이제이션 할 때, 이 경우에 이제 오브젝티브 펑션을 어떻게 설계하느냐면 뭐 거기도 KL도 쓰고 막 이런 거 쓰는데, 여기를 이제 빼기로 만들고, 그러면 이제 매트릭스 사이즈는 이것도 곱하면은 100 by 80이 나오죠. 그러면 여기다가 이제 놈을 걸어요. 그 놈은 이제 프로비니어스 놈이라는 걸 봐요. 프로비니어스 놈은 뭐냐면 여기서 나타난 차이 값에 해당하는 매트릭스가 0.1, 마이너스 0.2, 0.3, 0.5다. 이거에 대한 프로비니어스 놈은 뭐냐면 유클리디안 놈과 비슷해요. 요거 다 제곱해서 썸한 게, 물론 스퀘어 루트 취한 게 그게 프로비니어스 놈이라고 불려요. 그래서 요 매저, 그러니까 각 엘리먼트마다 다 차이를 최소화하도록 하는 요 놈, 이게 우리의 언노운이거든요. 그래서 얘네들을 찾고자 하는 게 매트릭스 팩토라이제이션에서 하고자 하는 일인데, 이제 저놈을 그 업데이트 할 때 이제 그레디언트 디센트를 할 수 있는 방법이 있고, 그레디언트 디센트를 할 수 있는 하는 방법은 뭐냐, 이게 그럼 매트릭스 형태라 하더라도 이제 베리어블이 어디에 있냐, 우리의 파라메터는 여기 어디에 있냐, 이걸 하나하나가 다, 요놈 하나하나가 다 우리의 파라미터예요. 총, 그러니까 뭐 뉴럴넷처럼 뭐 이렇게 뭐 혹은 뭐 어떤 선형결합의 개수처럼 생기진 않았지만, 일단은 여기에 파라미터 개수가 100 곱하기 5 플러스 5 곱하기 80개의 파라미터가 있고, 얘들에 대해서 각각의 그레디언트를 여기서 다 구하는 거예요. 그래서 그 그레디언트를 가지고 이렇게 그레디언트 디센트를 가지고 할 수도 있고요. 그렇지 않으면 또 하나는 아까의 그 코디네이트 디센트가 베리어블 2개짜리에서만 생각을 했는데, 이제 베리어블이 여기처럼 한 100개 된다고 해보면 우리가 풀 배치 그레디언트가 있고, 그 다음에 fully라는 말을 쓰는 게 좀 그렇죠. 그 fully stochastic gradient descent가 있고, 또 미니 배치 그레디언트 디센트가 있어요. 그러니까 한 번에 업데이트를 할 때 데이터 전체를 다 사용하느냐, 아니면 하나씩만 사용하느냐, 아니면 몽탱이 좀 서브 그룹을 사용하느냐. 여기서도 코디네이트 디센트는 어떻게 보면 하나씩만을 변수로 보고, 그러니까 총 100개가 있다면 99개의 변수들에 아까처럼 다 플러그인을 해요. 값들. 그리고 다 상수로 만들어버려요. 그래서 그 하나짜리 변수에 대해서 글로벌 옵티멈을 찾을 수도 있고, 근데 그것들을 좀 블락화해서, 미니 블락화해서, 미니 배치화해서 할 수가 있는 게 이제 총 100개가 있다. 그러면 예를 들면 한 뭐 20개씩을 이렇게 나눠요. 그래서 요 20개만 변수로 보고, 그 말은 이제 80개를 이렇게 플러그인을 해갖고 걔네들은 상수 취급하고, 요 20개들에 대해서는, 그러니까 어쨌건 100디멘전al 옵티마이제이션보다는 훨씬 쉬워졌잖아요. 그래서 20개 디멘전에 가지는 옵티마이제이션에서 글로벌 옵티머를 한 방에 풀 수 있으면, 그러면 이 코디네이트 디센트라는 게 또 동작할 수가 있어요. 이거를 그래서 우리가 이제 블락 코디네이트 디센트라고 불러요. 미니 배치 그레디언트 디센트라고 부르듯이 뭔가 블락 코디네이트 디센트라고 부르고, 여기서 이제 블락 코디네이트 디센트를 어떻게 하냐면, 여기 한 놈을 고정을 시켜서 얘를 풀고, 또 거꾸로 쟤를 고정시키고 얘를 풀고, 왔다 갔다. 그리고 역시 마찬가지로 한 놈을 고정시켰을 때 나머지를 풀 때에는 이건 그레디언트 디센트나 이런 거 이렇게 이터러티브하게 안 하고 한 방에 바로 풀어버려요. 글로벌 솔루션, 글로벌 옵티멈을 가져와요.
클로즈폼 솔루션이
서브 프로블럼은 클로즈폼 솔루션 있어요. 네, 맞아요. 그래서 이거, 뭐 또 이런 뭐 매치 스펙트라이제이션에서 뭐 내가 개인적으로 연구를 좀 많이 하고, 또 지도 교수님도 또 뭐 애초에 그쪽이셨고, 또 지도 교수의 또 약간 지도 교수의 지도 교수분은 뭐 하여튼 굉장히 또 대가인 뭐 리니어 알지브라의 뭐 거의 황제라 불리는 그런 분이었는데, 하여튼 그래서 좀 뭐 여담이지만 나는 뭐 학부 때까지는 참 선형대수 되게 싫어했는데, 어떻게 하다 보니 좀 지도 교수님을 그런 쪽으로 좀 만나서 어떻게 하다 보니 연구를 그런 쪽으로 하게 되고, 지금도 막 선형대수 관련한 과목도 가르치는데, 어쨌건 무슨 얘기를 하려도 여기까지 왔죠. 네? 네, 뭐라고요? 네네, 맞아. 맞아. 이거에서, 그러니까 블락을 이렇게 잡을 수도 있고요. 여기 이제 NMF, 여기 매트릭스 팩토라이제이션 풀 때 블락을 지금 이거는 2개로 잡았죠. 그러니까 하나는 500개, 하나는 58, 40, 58, 400개. 500개, 400개를 2개로 나눈 거고, 이거를 또 어떻게 잡을 수도 있냐면, 요놈 한 줄 한 줄씩을 다 쪼개요. 그러면 이거는 그러니까 한 블락으로 우리가 봤던 게 5블락으로 더 쪼개졌고, 쟤도 세로를 이렇게 쪼개요. 그러면 이게 또 5개를 쪼개져. 그러면 총 이거는 아까는 2개 블락이었고, 여기는 총 10개의 블락이 됩니다. 10개의 블락으로 또 코디네이트 디센트를, 블락 코디네이트 디센트를 할 수가 있어요. 그러니까 전체 이제 100개를 우리가 배치 사이즈를 어떻게 설정을 하느냐, 그것도 우리가 뭐 다르듯이 여기서도 베리어블의 그 블락들 혹은 서브 그룹들을 어떻게 잡느냐에 따라서도 또 알고리즘적인 여러 가지 또 그런 것들이 있고, 그리고 또 흥미로운 거는 이제 뭐 저런 매트릭스 팩토라이제이션에다가 뭐 예를 들면 우리가 스파르시티 컨디션을 넣는다. 그리고 뭐 여기 아마 그 어떤 굉장히 짧게 그 저기 중간에 페이퍼 프리젠트 한 곳에서 거기 뭐 스파스 코딩이니 뭐 이런 얘기 나왔었잖아요. 그 스파스 코딩이 다 이런 매트릭스 팩토라이제이션인데 거기서는 기본적으로 저런 이런 뭐 엘리먼트들에다가 이제 우리가 스파시티 컨스트레인트를 넣어요. L1 컨스트레인트나 이런 걸 넣는데 그런 어떤 컨스트레인트 다 그런 레귤러라이제이션 적당히 넣으면 뭐 KL 다이버전스 뭐 그런 그 레귤러라이제이션 넣었더니 뭐 좀 잘 되더라. 뭐 다 뭐 새로운 레귤러라이제이션 넣으면 뭐 페이퍼가 나오는 거잖아요. 여기서도 어떤 새로운 형태의 레귤러라이제이션을 넣었을 때에 기존의 이제 기존의 어떤 그레이디언트 디센트로 뭔가 잘 안 되는 경우가 있고, 그다음에 그런 경우에는 뭔가 저런 코디네이트 디센트, 그리고 코디네이트 디센트도 어떻게 블락을 잡느냐에 따라서 이 알고리즘이 쉽게 이렇게 설계가 되는 어떤 오브젝티브 펑션이 있고, 이제 그렇지 않은 경우가 있어요. 그래서 뭐 여러 가지 이런 좀 가능성들을 좀 잘 알고 있으면 뭔가 좀 도움이 되지 않을까 싶고요. 네. 또 다른 질문이요? Okay, so yeah, let's take a break for 10 minutes and resume at 32.
아닙니다.
먼저 얘기해.
별거 아니에요. 아침에 공개된 거가 진짜 점수가 아닌 것 같죠?
네.
네.
그게 내가 리뷰를 했잖아요, 우리가.
예.
그래서 거기에 스코어가 되게 많은데 스칼라라는 그게 하여튼 좀 중간에 있는 포인트고.
네, 그러니까요.
그래서 그
그거 높던데,
펜간을 리뷰해야
옛날에.
돼요, 거점. 텍스트를 보고 리그레션을 우리가 스스로 해야 돼요. 좀.
네, 알겠습니다.
네. 네.
여기서 보면 그 윈도우 사이즈만큼 컨텍스트 워드와의 그 뭐지? 내적 프로젝트로 소프트맥 하는 거잖아요. 근데 여기 분모를 보면 모든 코퍼스에 있는 거를 다 고려를 하는데
네,
그럼
네.
실질적으로 소프트맥스 계산할 때 이 W1부터 V는 모두 다
그렇죠.
계산을 하는데
네.
그러면은 그림이 이렇게 되어 있잖아요. 이렇게 되면은 여기가 센터고 이게 컨텍스인데 그러면 이게 이 계산되는 이 개수는
네.
윈도우 개수만큼 되는 거예요? 아니면은 코퍼스 전체가 다 돼요?
이게 내가 그 그림을 내가 여기 어디 나왔었나요?
그 노트에
내가 그린 쪽에? 아니면
잘 기억.
이게 이쪽에서
이
어디서
선이
좀
어디에 있었던 것 같은데.
네, 일단은요, 내가 그린 그림을 기준으로 한다면 그건 어디 있을까? 이거. 내가 그린 그림이 어디 있더라? 조원이 있으려나? 네. 이게 보면 그러니까 여기 이렇게 중심 단어가 여기까지 와서 이게 그러니까 C5랑 그 스키그램이랑 그림이 좀 약간 이상하게 그려진 것 내가 생각할 땐 좀 이런 그림 있잖아요.
네.
이런 그림은 좀 나는 좀 무의미한 것 같아요. 그러니까
왜요?
이런
네.
이게 그러니까 실제로 이렇게 네트워크
네.
브랜치가
네.
이렇게 그러니까 윈도우 사이즈가 만약에 5다.
네.
5가 2다. 그럼 플러스 마이너스 2로 하면 그 컨텍스트 워드가 4개가 생기잖아요.
네.
그럼 이 4개가 이제 4개가 브랜치 아웃 되는 게 아니라
네.
이게 다 결국은 같은 파라미터거든요, 지금. 요
네,
파라미터나 요게
맞아요.
다 똑같은 거예요. 그러니까
그러면은
이거는 저렇게 생각할 게 아니라 그냥 하나의 나비 넥타이로 된 요 뉴럴넷이 있고요. 요 뉴럴넷이 있고
네.
한 번은 아까 봤었던 I study math면 math하고 i를 넣어주고 그래서 한번 트레이닝 시키고 스터디하고 i를 넣어서 트레이닝 시키고요. 스터디하고 math를 넣어서 이렇게 순차적으로 그냥 트레이닝을 한다고
그러니까
보면 돼요.
그러면은 윈도우별로 업데이트가 된다는 얘기는 그렇게 순차적으로
네.
윈도우 안에 있는 그러니까 앞뒤
네.
두 개만 하고
그렇죠.
업데이트를 한 번 하고 그렇게 생각을 하면 되는 거예요.
그러니까 한 윈도우당 이제 트레이닝 데이터가 4개가 만들어진다고 생각합니다.
한 윈도우당 트레이닝 데이터가
네.
4개요?
네.
그러면은 그 4개가 어떻게 보면 배치가 되는 거예요?
배치라고 생각할 수도 있고
네.
그럴 수도 있는데 그냥 그렇게 어떤 페어를
네.
그러니까 센터 워드 잡고 마이너스 2, 마이너스 1, 플러스 1, 플러스 2 이 모든 페어 4개를 다 만들어요. 하나 옮겨서 또 4개 페어를 또 만들어요. 그걸 쫙 나열을 해요. 이게 우리의 트레이닝 데이터.
그러면은 어쨌든 근데 그 소프트맥스 계산할 때는 모든 코퍼스에 대해서
네,
익스포넨셜한 게
그러니까
분모로
네.
들어가잖아요.
그거는 한 페어에 대해서.
한 페어에 대해서.
스터디와 그러니까 매스라는 그 한 페어에 대해서 매스라는 그러니까 옵저브드 된 워드도 하나잖아요. 지금 현재. 그러니까 지금 매스일 때고 한 경우만 따지는 거죠. 요 한 경우. 매스에서의 그 시밀러리티랑 그리고 보캐뷸러리에 있는 뭐 10,000단어가 있다. 10,000개랑 센터워드랑은 다 해서 그 어떤 expected 된 벡터와 그 observed 된 이 매스라는 벡터의 그 차이, 그 벡터를 가지고 이 VC를 업데이트. 그 다음엔 또 이제 I study 매스에서 스터디 매스 페어가 있고 스터디 I 페어가 있잖아요. 그거가 있으면 지금 한 걸 또 하는 거예요. 그러니까 모든 거에 대해서 다시 한번.
그러면은 이 디스트리뷰션이 결국은 만들어지는데 POC가 그러면 모든 센터 워드? 그러니까 어떻게 보면 모든 코퍼스에 해당되는 센터 워드별로 디스트리뷰션이 다 만들어진다라고 생각을 하는 거예요. 그러니까, 네, 그리고 하나 더 있는데 아까 이렇게 업데이트 될 때 이 U5와 가까워지는 거는 이해가 됐는데
네.
왜 얘랑은 멀어지게 된다라고 해석을 해야 되나?
그러니까 이게 내가 그 옵저브드 된 실제로 관찰된 단어가 매스가 아니면 내가 하여튼 기대하는 거는 저 점이에요. 근데 옵저브드 된 게 점이 요거로 판명이 됐으니까 내가 기대한 점은 요거고 실제로 발견된 점은 요거고 그러니까 그 차이만큼을 내가 계산해서 그 방향으로 가주겠다는 뜻이거든요.
그 차이가 나타내는 의미가 어떤 거가 되는 거예요?
그 차이가 그러니까 이게 소프트맥스에서 이제 그때 약간 시그모이드 쪽으로 뺐을 때 생각했듯이 이제 한 벡터가 어떤 벡터 소프트맥스랑 했을 때 어떤 벡터랑 이너 프로덕트가 소프트맥스에서 값이 커지려고 그러면 그래서 얘를 조절을 했어요. 그러니까 벡터가 3개가 있는데 첫 번째 벡터와의 이너 프로덕트를 내가 키우기 위해서 우리 센터 워드의 값을 얘와 좀 근접하게 우리가 조절을 했어요. 근데 그게 얘를 키우려고 내가 한 거잖아요. 근데 나머지 두 번째, 세 번째에서 의도치 않게 얘 바뀐 애와의 이너 프로덕트가 첫 번째가 이너 프로덕트가 증가한 값보다 두 번째, 세 번째가 더 커지면 나는 오히려 잘못된 걸 한 거거든요. 확률을 오히려 첫 번째 단어의 확률을 낮춘 거거든요. 그러니까 이런 상대적인 어떤 특성 때문에
그러니까 그 옵저브드된 컨텍스트 벡터가 독립으로 존재하는 게 아니라 다른 컨텍스트와
그렇죠.
상대적인 거니까.
네, 그러니까 다른 애들은 낮춰주고 얘는 높여줘야 되기 때문에 이게
네, 알겠습니다.
커널 그 과제에서
네.
그가 실제로 엡실론 레이디어스 클래시파이어를 그렇게 커널로 정의해서 구현하지는 않죠.
뭐
근데-
그거 자체는 그냥 코드로 짜면 이렇게 뭐 복잡한 형태로 뭔가 할 필요는 없죠.
근데 이제 제가 의문이 들었던 거는 보통 이제 SVM에서는 이제 이 알파가 라그랑지 멀티플라이어라서 0보다 크거나 같잖아요.
네.
그리고 이제 이 K 커널
근데 라그랑지
함수가-
멀티플라이어가 곱해지고 거기에 그 플러스 1, 마이너스 1이라는 그 레이블이 같이 곱해져요.
그러네요. 예.
그러니까 이제 마이너스 그것도
그리고-
약간 보팅 같은 걸 하는 거예요.
그리고 이제 그 커널이 이제 커널로 그램 매트릭스를 만들어서 그 그램 매트릭스가 만족해야 되는 뭐 세미 파지티브 데피니티스라든지 디터미넌트가 0보다 크다 뭐 이런 것들 있잖아요. 이런 거는 체크를 안 해도 되는 건가요 여기서는?
여기서는 그 특성으로
서로 중요한 건 아니죠.
그거는 SVM에서 중요하긴 하나 지금 내가 얘기한 요거랑은 조금은 관련성은
네, 알겠습니다.
아까 그 정보랑 좀 비슷한 것 같은데 지금 이 스킵그래 같은 경우에 웨이터 매트리스가 크게 두 가지로 되어 있는데 혹시 이게 사실 T3-3랑 T-2랑 이렇게 되어 있잖아요. 근데 웨이트 매트리스를 사실 각각별로 하면 안 되는지 궁금하더라고요.
그렇게 할 수도 있는데 그러면 이제 파라미터가 윈도우 개수만큼 배수가 돼요. 그러니까 그런 경우도 이제 사람들이 트라이를 해봤는데 이제 썩 이렇게 좀
아, 그런 경우도
실효성이 없더라. 게 그래서 이제 이렇게
그래서 그냥 이렇게 캡슐 하나 더 마지막으로 짚고 싶은 게 있는데 아까 그 사실 글씨를 고정하고 이제 백프로게이션을 이렇게 학습을 하게 되면은 자연스럽게 첫 번째 웨이트 매트리스랑 두 번째 웨이트 매트리스 같이 업데이트가 될 것 같은데
네.
다시 반대로 U5를 고정하고 다시 역으로도 다시 학습을 하는 그건 안 돼요.
그러니까 U5를 고정하고 이제 이쪽에 있는 VC가 학습이 되는 거죠.
그때는 U5를 다시
지금 우리가 그레디언트 VC에 대해서 구했잖아요.
네네.
그게 이 뉴런넷의 백프랍 관점에서 보면 이 첫 번째 레이어의 파라미터를 업데이트하는 쪽에 해당이 돼요.
네네. 알겠습니다.
방금 학생이랑 약간 비슷한 질문인데 백프로게이션 할 때 VC를 이제 그 고정으로 하고 U5가 계속해서 이제 업데이트가 되는 거잖아요. 근데 그럴 때 이제 그 처음에 이제 맨 처음에 이제 값에 그 X 그 VC 부분 잠시만요.
네네. 네.
잠깐
네.
빠른 건데
알았어요.
그 숙제
네.
1번에 관한 건데
네.
제가 생각했을 때는 먼저 시뮬리티 커널 같은 경우 유사도를 측정하는 커널이잖아요. 그러려면 유사도랑 디스턴스는 어퍼스 컨셉이라서 좀 역수를 취한 상태에서 이거를 커널로
네. 네.
이거는 틀린 거예요.
그러니까 이제 원래 가우시안 커널이나 이런 것들, 그러니까
네.
또 사실 폴리노미얼 커널이나 이런 건 또 아니고 가우시안 커널 같은 경우는 먼저 유클리디안 디스턴스가 계산이 되고 그거를 가지고 이제 약간은 역수 취한 듯이 이제 시밀러리티로 변환을 해줘요.
저도 그 RBF 커널을 생각을 해가지고
그러니까 그런 식으로 뭔가 좀 거기에서부터 출발한 학생들이 조금 있긴 했는데.
네.
그러니까 여기서는 그냥 그 시밀러리티 커널이라는 거는 꼭 우리가 RBF 커널이나 가우시안 커널에 국한할 필요는 전혀 없는. 다만 이제 커널이라고 우리가 이거를 또 커널이라고 내가 부르기 위해서는 이 저기 뭐 시메트리 파지티브 데피니시나 뭐 이런 좀 관계들이 만족이 돼야 되는데 그거는 여기서는 그게 만족이 되지는 않아서 이거를 실제로 커널이라고 부를 수 있는지 그게 수학적으로는 그게 조금 좀 틀린 부분이 있긴 할 것 같긴 해요. 그래서 이거를 그냥 단지 커널이란 말을 쓰는 게 아니라 시밀러리티 메저 혹은 시밀러리티 펑션이라고.
그럼 이제 거리로 보지 않고 아예 거리라는 게 근데 레디어스 네이버 같은 경우는 완전 프레젠 디스턴스 베이스잖아요.
네.
근데 그러려고 하면은 이 컨시더 처음에 말씀하셨던 바이너리 클래스파이 있잖아요. 시밀러리티 커널 베이스 그렇게 하면 약간 영어 쓰는 거잖아요.
그러니까 디스턴스에 기반해서 이제 시밀러리티를 정의하는 방법은 우리가 그냥 분의 1을 해서
네.
뭔가를 할 수도 있고 아니면
네.
가우시안을 해갖고 시밀러리티를 만들 수도 있고
네.
아니면 디스턴스가 몇 이상이면 시밀러리티는 난 0으로 보고 몇
네, 네.
이하면 난 시밀러리티를 풀리 1로 보겠다 라고 이렇게 뭔가 해도 말이 안 되는 건 아니니까 그런 식으로 좀 간단하게 정의하고자 하는 걸 의도한 거예요.
그 W2에서는 이제 그 VC 값을 이제 그 업데이트하면서 이제 U5로 점점 더 가까워지는데 이제 W1으로 갔을 때는 이제 VC를 고정을 하고 U5가 이제 VC 쪽으로 가까워질 때
네.
근데 이제 여기 처음에 여기에는 이제 벡터 값들이 그냥 고정되어 있잖아요.
네.
그런데 그러면 이 벡터 값들이랑 이 고정되어 있는 벡터 값이랑 상관없이 그 U5를 계속해서 업데이트해서 W를 그 업데이트할 수 있는지.
여기서 백프랍이 여기 인풋이 고정됐을 때 백프랍이 여기까지 오잖아요.
네.
여기에 이제 액티베이션 값들이 나오고
네.
그거를 가지고 백프랍을 하면 얘에 대해서의 파라미터 업데이트는
네.
더 이상 여기서의 어떤 값에 일단 여기서의 정보는 여기까지 흘러왔고
네.
이 정보에서 바로 백프랍 된 게 얘에 대해서 그레디언트를 주니까
네.
직접적으로 얘 그레디언트를 구할 때는 이제 여기에서 지금 뭐가 있었는지는 지금 당장은
상관이
상관이
없이 그냥 영향.
왜냐면 그레디언트가 여기까지 일단 이게 여기까지 왔고
네.
그 아웃풋에 기반해서 거기에 이제 그 그라운드 트루스와 비교돼 갖고 얘한테 그레디언트가 계산이 되는 거니까요.
그러면 그 처음에 있었던 벡터 값이랑은 상관없이 그 다음에 나왔던 W2의
네.
그 결과 값을 이제 그 W1의 인풋 값으로 들어가서
W2, W1?
W2의
W2, 여기가 한번 업데이트되고
업데이트
그
된
다음에
거를
백프랍이 여기서도 생기고 그레디언트가 여기서 생기고
여기서
이제 그걸 가지고 얘가 업데이트돼요.
아, 네, 알겠습니다. 감사합니다. 아, 그리고 어제 그 과제 제출을 한 게 그 시간이 제가 제출했는데 근데 딱 이제 맞게 제출해서 근데 그게 좀 조금 늦은 것 같아요. 형은 그 레이트 처리가 됐는데
아, 네, 괜찮아요. 네, 그 정도는 뭐. 네.
아, 그리고 그 제가 과제를 하는데 이제 뒷부분 같은 경우는 좀 시간이 좀 많이 부족했던 게 없지 않아 있어서 근데 교수님 문제 같은 경우도 참 공부하는 게 좀 어려워서 혹시 좀 나중에 제출해도 상관없는 건지 아니면
네, 나중에라도 좀 제출해 주세요. 제출 못했으면 네, 나중에라도 제출해 주세요.
빨리면 감사할 수 있어.
Okay, let's start. Yeah, so yeah, I'm very glad that you guys are so enthusiastic and yeah, very energetic in studying yeah, what we are currently studying. Yeah, and then also some people might have a little bit some people might not have a kind of clear idea about about how this gradient derivation used here is related to the backpropagation, right? So maybe I try to design another problem that asks you to maybe do some backpropagation on your own based on this computation graph or this kind of fully connected layers or something like that. So yeah, you guys know that even though it is non-trivial to derive this, but if you have this this linear layer or a fully connected layer, for example, if we had a 5 node and 3 node as an output, and then we have a 5 node, and then our W will be like this 3 by 5 matrix, right? And then that will give our Y vector, right? So this is just typical linear layer or fully connected layer. And then what is our gradient? So what is our gradient? So this is more exactly. So it is a kind of a little bit less accurate kind of representation that tries to just write this in short. Okay. So what will be this guy? So this guy is W transpose, right? So if you don't know about it, then I strongly encourage you to go to the CS231N and then do the homework about the backpropagation. Okay. So, anyways, yeah, sorry, but this Y should be here. So this is the backpropagation kind of derivation for the linear layer, and then although I haven't done the backprop based kind of a derivation of these gradients on each layer in our neural net, like this bottleneck structure based neural net which is for the word2vec, and then you can do the backpropagation, and you can actually implement or write the backpropagation derivation on the first layer and the second layer and so on. Okay. So probably I'll prepare for some homework that asks you to derive that as well, and then you can see clearly the relations about this backprop based kind of derivation, and also like this direct derivation all the way from the beginning. Okay. Okay, so I'm surprised that we haven't covered the homework yet. Yeah. So, but finally, it's the last one, last problem, and so honestly, in the case of last problem, I haven't thought much about it, about the clear answer, and I just gave you the problem, although I'm not clear about the exact answer. and see what you can come up with. And then yeah, my intended answer is not perfect either, but yes, some student some student somehow gave the answer that I intended as well. And some other student, I mean there are many different kind of, interpretations, but here's my opinion. I mean it can be just a personal opinion, but yeah. So this one, I mean, we can perform the gradient descent with no problem, and so some student also derived the gradient in case where those two vector sets are exactly the same. Okay, and then the gradient, you can easily derive the gradient as well, and then you can follow the gradient descent based on that newly derived gradient formulation. But at a high level, I wanted to point out the following stuff. So the main point, or the main difference was coming from here. So here, so we are doing the inner product with the center word and all the context word vectors, right? And then, in the case of doing the inner product with the same word, okay, the same word, okay, and then if VC is a study, and then in our vocabulary, study is also included as well, and then the context vector of the same word study will be computed with for its inner product with the center word vector, right? In that case, so our center word, suppose our center word was second one, because study is the second word in our dictionary, and so where is it? Yeah, here it is. Yeah, so U2 transpose and V2. So this is the inner product that we would do in the previous case. But if we set them as the same vector, and then it will be it will be this guy. Yeah, the inner product with the same vector, right? Yeah. So we can think of that in terms of the degree of our function to optimize. Okay. So in that case, what will be the degree of this? This expression. I mean, if it was something like this, and then what is our variable? Our variable is a v2, right? Although it's a vector, but we have a set of variables, right? And then they are all like in the form of a linear combination. So this was like a v1 and v2. Maybe a1 and a and b. So these are the two variables that we want to compute this partial derivative or gradient, and then u2 is like 1 and 2, and then this inner product is of course a1 and 2b, a plus 2b, right? So this is a linear or the first order polynomial in terms of our variables of a and b, right? But suddenly if it is changing it as a and b, and then it will be a squared and b squared. So suddenly it is like a quadratic form, right? And that is included in our objective function. And that means more number of degrees in our polynomial or our objective function means we have more complex shape of our mountain or our objective function shape, right? So we are prone to, or we are easily getting into a kind of a local minima, right? So the function is worse, right? Because that has a larger number of degrees in our objective functions polynomial, right? So in that sense, that is not kind of a preferable. So that was the point. And then although very few, but some students pointed this out properly. 네.
궁금한 게 목절부들랑 센터가 V2로 들을 수 있나요?
그러니까 VC는 지금 센터워드는 지금 iStudyMath에서 스터디에 대한 센터워드 V2고요. 그 다음에 저 서메이션, 그 디노미네이터에서 분모에서 하는 저 서메이션은 기본적으로 우리 갖고 있는 딕셔너리에 있는 모든 워드들의 컨텍스트 워드 벡터를 다 하는 거잖아요. 그죠? 그럼 그 중에는 당연히 스터디에 대한 컨텍스트 벡터도 있어요. 근데 컨텍스트 스터디 동일한 워드에 대한 센터 워드 벡터, 컨텍스트 워드 벡터가 다르면 일단 우리 얘에 대해서 미분하면 얘는 여전히 상수 취급이 되는데 얘 두 개가 이제 같은 걸로 되면 지금 여기서처럼 조이너 프로덕트가 분명히 나타나요. 그렇죠? 그래서 차수가 늘어나게 되죠. Okay, and so yeah, in the case of word2vec, yeah, you can, yeah, so yeah, it is still possible to use yeah, UI equals to VIs for all I's, right? In that case, it can be viewed as like a kind of parameter sharing between these two layers of our neural net. So we are using W1 here, and then what will be our linear transformation matrix here? Would it be W1 transpose, right? So that way we are sharing the parameters between the first and the second layer, right? And also these parameter sharing is yeah, commonly used, like yeah, it's a key idea for these convolution operations in the convolutional neural nets, right? So there are so if I have a chance, I give my lecture video link to describe how we can view the convolutional neural net as a fully connected neural net by doing this parameter sharing. Okay. But anyways, yeah. So in that case, we can of course do this this kind of updating by using this parameter sharing. But as I mentioned, yeah, in terms of our objective function, yeah, the degree is higher, and thus it can be a little bit more unstable, like being prone to falling into a local minima, right? And thus, yeah, but I think it is a little bit more natural form because we want just one single set of a word vector, right? So, yeah, personally, I think it may be more natural kind of a neural net architecture, right? Because we want just one set of word vectors. But in this case, anyways, in the word2vec, they used these two vectors, two word vectors, as a center word version and context word version, and then they just use the averaged one sometimes, or they sometimes use just pick up the first one. Okay, so this is the final word embedding vectors that we're going to use in our downstream applications, whether it's a machine translation or question answering and so on, right? And then also, so at some point, Richard Socher in our lecture mentioned about this this kind of issue when using the same variable, and then the objective function, yeah, can be kind of unstable. So he mentioned at some point about it in lecture 3. Okay. And also it is related to my own research, but because I briefly mentioned about this matrix factorization. So in this matrix factorization, so usually we consider this a rectangular matrix, and then as I mentioned, yeah, so these two matrices is like these two different matrices, the W and H, I mean, it's just a notation that we assign as a first and the second matrix. And so in this case, we can separate them into a block coordinated set, right? Because they are separate variables, separate sets of variables, right? But there are also kind of matrix factorization variant where we have a symmetric matrix as an input, and that symmetric matrix can be viewed as like a friendship network. So if I am a friend with you in a Facebook, and then of course the opposite will be true, right? So in that kind of adjacency, in that case, constructing this adjacency matrix will be definitely or naturally symmetric, right? So this is Jane and John, maybe Charsu, Youngie, and then so maybe Jane and John, if they are friend, and then it will be 1 here, and then also this value will also be 1. So it will be a symmetric matrix. And also if we assume that all the people that we consider are the same population, and then the number of rows and number of columns will be the same, and thus it will be the square matrix, right? So if we consider 100 people, and then it will be 100 by 100 matrix, right? So in that case, since this matrix is symmetric, so if you heard about the matrix decomposition like Cholesky decomposition, so it is like decomposing the matrix A when A is a symmetric positive definite matrix, and then we can we can always decompose the matrix A, which is like 100 by 100, as the low-ranked version of these two matrices, C and C transpose. Okay, so this is called the Cholesky decomposition, and it can be viewed as like computing the square root of the matrix. Okay, because we are like multiplying the same matrix together, I mean twice, and then we obtain one matrix, and then given this matrix, and what is the square root factor of matrix A? So that is the meaning of the Cholesky factorization. But back to here, so similar to this Cholesky decomposition, let's suppose these two matrices to be the same. So we have 100 and 5 and 5 and 100. So in this case, so given matrix A and A minus W transpose and F, so this one will be minimized. Okay, so in this case, can we use the block coordinate descent here? So can we treat this one as a constant but not on this one? It is not possible because they are the same variable, and this has inherently the same problem as the case where we use the same vector for the context and the center word, because it's basically a quadratic form where the two parts, I mean the same set of variables, are multiplied together, right? So that will increase the degree of our polynomials in our objective function, right? So in this case, the one trick that my advisor and also I often used in some of my papers were as follows. So it is almost similar to like the previous word embedding or word2vec setting. So we just initially set them as two different ones, although we want them to be the same. Okay, so in that case, W1, W2 transpose. Okay, we change this objective function in this form, although this is not an exact objective function that we had, and then we also add some regularization term where W1 negative minus W2 to be also minimized. Okay. Yep. So in this case, W1 and W2 are mixed together as a multiplication, but still we can view one as a constant and then the other as a variable. And then also in this case, they are just combined as a addition or subtraction. So that doesn't increase the difficulty or the degree of the polynomial in our objective function, right? So in that case, we can derive our updating rule for the block coordinate descent, and then so that way we can change this guy into this objective function. So that actually is worth paper, at least maybe 3 or 4 years back. Okay, so
what is the gain by setting those two weights the same?
This one. I mean, that is the original one that we want to solve. So we don't want to allow this W1 and W2 to be different, right? But when changing it into this form, right? So it is much easier to solve, but after solving it, W1 and W2 will have a slight differences, right? So unless this one is a infinite number, infinitely large value, then this one will kind of a balance between these two, right? So that will not give a single solution, single optimal solution for this original objective function, right? So we are kind of approximate the original one into that one. But we ideally want to have the first one, and then the intuitive meaning of why we want to use that objective function. So if you are if you are familiar with the recommender system like collaborative filtering, so this adjacency matrix this adjacency matrix is often like user by what item, right? And then if we have 100 users subscribed to the Netflix has maybe 500 different movies, okay? And then we can build up this adjacency matrix depending on whether a person watched a particular movie or not, right? So if he or she watched that movie, and then the value will be set as 1 and 0 otherwise. And then that way we can construct this kind of friendship-like adjacency matrix, right? And in that case, so it's like 500 and like this one. And then how we interpret that low rank matrix or low rank vector is as follows. So so you remember the word embedding, and then that first one is the word embedding vector in the like a W1, and that one is W2, right? Word vector as a context word vector, right? And then we can think about all these vectors living in the same space, same latent space, right? So if you like study a little bit of a recommender system, and then also like a collaborative filtering kind of context, and then main technique for solving this collaborative filtering is to do this matrix factorization. And then each user, so here we have a user on the first matrix, and then we have now a user embedding matrix represented in this 5-dimensional space, right? And then these vectors will be embedding vector for movies, right? So that way user embedding, the user vector and the movie vectors are living all in the same 5-dimensional space. So this is the result that we use, okay, given this low rank matrix factorization output. Okay, so back to this symmetric matrix case, a symmetric case where we have a user by user, right? And then it will give, it's almost the same as a word embedding kind of context. So it will give one embedding vector for our user, and also another version for the embedding vector of our user, the same users, right? So ideally we want to have them to be the same, right? So that way, so we want to solve this kind of problem, but and then also related to this collaborative filtering, this collaborative filtering case is this matrix factorization is typically characterized as like incomplete matrix factorization. Okay, incomplete. So if you are familiar with the SVD, singular value decomposition, and then the one variant of an SVD used in the collaborative filtering is called a incomplete SVD, although it's a completely different algorithm, but that is so incomplete SVD. So what is incomplete? So incomplete means, so here, so we usually have ones here in the context of user by item or user by movie matrices. We set ones if a particular user watched a particular movie, but if we set this guy as 0, and then it means that this guy didn't watch this movie, but that doesn't mean that this guy doesn't like this movie, or this guy doesn't want to watch this movie, right? This guy it may be the case that this guy just do not know about this movie existing, right? So that way we don't know what this value is. So if we were to recommend this movie to the guy, and then this guy may really like this movie, right? So that way we treat that value as an unknown value instead of setting 0. Okay. Okay, so in our matrix of a maybe 100 by 500 of user by item matrix, then we only know some particular values, but the majority of them will be unknown, right? And then when doing the matrix factorization in this manner, our user and the movie embedding will be fully known. So yeah, it doesn't make sense that we have unknown value in our user or movie embedding vector, right? Because that is an output that we want to compute, right? We don't allow kind of unknown kind of value in the middle of our output embedding vector, right? So we are fully filling out the output. Yeah, that is a reasonable, right? And then if we approximate this guy into this two product of these two row rank matrices, and then if we just perform the matrix multiplication, and then it will of course generate 100 by 500 matrices, right? After obtaining this or computing this, and then just performing the matrix multiplication between the two, and then we will have like a really big, the matrix that has the same size as an input matrix, right? So in that case, so if you remember the objective function in this matrix factorization, what was our objective function? So given our vector that we want to optimize, we form this big matrix, and then we subtract between them, right? And then we compute the element-wise. Yeah, element-wise differences, right? And then we consider those errors as our really the error that we want to minimize, right? But what if we had unknown values, right? And then this guy actually predicted as maybe 5, for example. And then this one doesn't contribute to our objective function because it is an unknown value, so we have no kind of ground truth value, right? To be close as possible, to be as close as possible, right? And actually that value is our used as a main kind of prediction output for our movie recommendation or collaborative filtering. So the point of this collaborative filtering is that, okay, so once we obtain this full low rank product or low rank matrix and their product, and then form these entire matrix, okay? And then suppose this John watched movies like Die Hard and then maybe Terminator, okay? And all the other movies are not yet watched, and thus they are initially unknown values, right? But our resulting matrix will have, for this, it was John, right? And then it will fill out all these values, right? And then for those movies that he didn't watch yet, and then we pick up the highest score, the movies that has the highest score, okay? So that is the predicted value about his preference to a particular movie. So that's how we utilize this collaborative filtering as recommended for the recommender system task. Okay, so it's like a matrix completion task because we are filling out all the unknown values in our matrix. Okay. Okay, so that is the kind of a brief kind of intro about the collaborative filtering in recommender system task. Although the the collaborative filtering is not the only method for performing the recommender system. We also have the something called the content-based recommender system, but that is really nothing but the binary prediction task. So I'm not gonna talk too much about it. But questions? Yeah, probably that's it, finally. Okay, and then let's look at the quiz. Is it also problematic too? 왜 이러지 이거? 이번에 뭐가 좀 막았겠나? 이거 다른 데 할 때는 전혀 이상할 때 중에 한 번도 없어. 그냥 한 50번은 더 한 것 같습니다. 이상하고. 다시 한번 리프레시를 해보죠. 당황스럽게 하는데요. 이게 원래 실시간 리프레시가 돼야 되는데 아이패드를 안 되나? 네. 오케이. the first one is false, right? And then, yeah, because we don't have any nonlinear unit in the middle. And then the second layer. Okay, let's look at the last one first. So you guys understand? Yeah, it was quite easy, right? It looks like many students yeah, correctly answered this question. But let me just briefly check, review the C and D in the last question. The similarity between the two terms is completely zero when they have no co-occurring keywords in common. Okay, so it is something like it is really similar to adjacency matrix. I mean, co-occurrence matrix is really nothing but the adjacency matrix, where we have keyword 1, keyword 2, and so on, keyword 1, keyword 2, and so on. So we fill out the number of occurrences within the same window out of our corpus, right? So that number is recorded here, right? So if study and maybe math co-occurred maybe 10 times, it will be 10, right? So so this one will be symmetric matrix, and then also, in this case, we can just use either columns or rows as our word embedding vector, right? But the size will be really large. It's the same as the dimension is the vocabulary size, right? And then okay, and then if the two keyword didn't have any co-occurring terms in common, right? So this guy had non-zero here and here and here, like so the first term, and then some term somewhere here, and then if it had co-occurring terms like here, and then this guy had a co-occurring terms like here, in that case, if we do the inner product, and then it would be 0, right? The dimension remains the same when the new keyword is added to a dictionary. So so when a new keyword is added to our vocabulary, and then if we so suppose we have 100 maybe 3 keywords in our vocabulary, and then we embedded them into 100 dimensional space. But suppose later on we had a fourth newly added term, and then we want to obtain the word embedding for this fourth term. Although we can do our word embedding, I mean training of a word embedding all the way from scratch, from the beginning, by using all the existing training corpus and also this new corpus containing those new words, right? But we can kind of incrementally update only on these newly added sentence or kind of a newly added word, right? So in that case, we don't change the existing word embedding, but we will change the the word embedding for newly added word, right? Right? So in that sense, although it is a kind of approximate, because they are all interdependent, because so as you saw in like a VC and UO, right? So these are updated simultaneously in a way that they are getting closer to each other, right? But suppose we added one new term, and then it appeared with this existing term, and then this guy will be updated so that it can be closer to the existing kind of term that co-occurred together. But this guy also should be updated as well, right? Because if they are updated interdependently, and then if this guy were updated, right, and then this guy, suppose this guy had also co-occurring terms like all in the other parts, and then all the other parts will also be like pulled together as well. So in principle, I mean, the exact embedding, the most accurate embedding will be to just start from scratch again, right? But we can kind of do the approximate embedding only by updating like this newly added terms word embedding vector, right? So it is still possible, and although approximate, it is kind of a reasonable kind of quality. So in that sense, we can do this kind of newly added terms or handle this newly added terms in a reasonable amount of an effort. But in the case of yeah, so yeah, in the co-occurring kind of thing, in this case, if we add one more term and then, yeah, these parts will be added completely, right? And then it means, even if this word, I mean, newly added term was like a soccer, okay? And then the soccer didn't co-occur with the study. And then this one will be 0 here, right? But at least it will have an effect of increasing the total dimension of our word embedding space, right? And thus we will have to add all these zeros into the existing word embedding vectors, right? So that way it is more cumbersome or like a burdensome. So yeah, it's about the count-based and also prediction-based kind of thing. So let me see what kind of an answers you guys had. It's quite diverse, but C or D. Oof, I have to go back. C or D. Count-based methods include latent semantic analysis. So you can think of the count-based method as follows. So if you build up this co-occurrence matrix, like an adjacency matrix, like a user by item matrix kind of thing. So in that case, word by word, like a co-occurring matrix, can be viewed as a kind of the friendship kind of relations between the words, right? So in that sense, we can still view that as a adjacency matrix. And then if we use this adjacency matrix, and then yeah, it is a count-based method, and also this latent semantic indexing will also use the count-based method, but so really there is a kind of a subtle but interesting kind of differences, at least for me. So yeah, in the typical word embedding, just like GloVe. So in the GloVe case, the x and y axis in our matrix is word by word, right? So it's a square matrix, right? And then the element value is the co-occurring count, right? But in the case of an LSA, or latent semantic indexing or latent semantic analysis, so we usually set up or build up what? Term document matrix, right? So let's see. Okay, so this is our term document matrix, right? So we build up initially our vocabulary to be the same as our dimensions, right? And then for each document, we record the count of each word, right? So that way, we are preparing for each bag for each word in our dictionary, and then we throw a ball corresponding to each word that we see in our sentence or document into the corresponding bin, right? So that way it's called the bag of words. Okay, so in that case, it's still a count-based method, right? Because we are counting it, but at the same time, it is slightly different from the word-by-word co-occurrence matrix, right? So, so the first axis is a word, and the other axis is what? Document, right? It's not a word, right? So it is a kind of it is analogous to, in the context of word embedding, it is analogous to this setting. So this is our document, right? And then here in this document, if we imagine the window that we applied here, right? So what is our window? We kind of considered our window as this guy for the first document, right? And then for the second document, it is our new window, right? So this time the window doesn't work like sliding windows, in a sliding manner with a fixed window size. But here we don't kind of do the sliding on the window. Our window is kind of existing only once per document, and the window size will be covering up the entire for each document, it will cover up the entire words shown in the document. So that way, we can think about this window as our document. So it can be viewed as term by window matrix. Okay. So here in this case, we have a two kind of window that are corresponding to our document, and then this is how we constructed our term document matrices. And then also we can build up our term by window matrices from just a sliding window case, right? So in this case, like this guy is our the first sliding window position, and then John likes movies and all zeros, and then we move on, and then it's like likes movies and Mary, right? So we can concatenate these column vectors for each window, for their count of words, right? So we can view, we can relate this term by window matrix as a kind of standard or traditional term document matrix. But anyways, SVD works given this kind of input, term by document matrix. So it is not exactly a word by word co-occurrence matrices, but still it's a count based because we are recording the count. And then the fundamental difference between the count based method and the prediction based method is as follows. So here study and mass was found here. I mean, corresponding elements were like 10. So in our entire corpus that contains like millions of tokens or maybe millions of Wikipedia articles, before we perform the gradient descent update, we first compute this kind of co-occurrence statistics, right? So that way we compute this total count of these co-occurrence, right? So in that case, if it occurred 10 times, if we did a typical word embedding, like based on the prediction or the neural net based kind of a gradient descent, we would do the same operation like 10 times, right? Because this pair of study comma mass will appear 10 times, and then individually at each occurrences we will update those to word vectors, right? So in that sense, we are like updating the same vectors, I mean the same relationships like 10 times. So in that case it's a little bit redundant kind of computation, although it's a stochastic gradient descent. So in the first co-occurrences of a study and mass, their initial vector will be different, and then in the second co-occurrence they will have a different vectors, and then their updating will be slightly different, but overall roughly they are kind of a redundant operation if these vectors do not change much, right? So that is the basic intuition for this GloVe, right? So okay, so in this case of a GloVe, objective function is basically count based, right? So this guy is, you can think of this guy as co-occurrence matrix between words, right? Word by word co-occurrence matrix. And then we consider the probability distribution, and that means like we simply perform the row-wise or column-wise sum-to-one kind of operation or normalization. So if mass co-occurred with maybe study 3 times, and then maybe science and with the science maybe with the 5 times, and then all other to be 0, and then it will be normalized as 3/8 and 5/8, right? So this is the meaning of this Pij, okay? and then we take the logarithm on this probability. Okay, and then still the log function is a monotonically increasing function, right? And thus a large value or large co-occurrence will have a large probability value, right? And then we try to fit this inner product between this center and the context word vectors, inner product to be as close as possible to the given probability value based on this co-occurrence matrix. Okay, and then we do this fitting for all the possible pairs of all the possible word pairs. So if we have a maybe 500 vocabulary, I mean the 500 is our vocabulary size. If we have a 500 words, and then how many elements in this matrix? Of course, 25, 250,000, right? So we do this kind of fitting on these all these entries in this matrix. But here, one important part is this guy. This guy can be viewed as a weighting factor. So this guy can be viewed as like I may be a little bit wrong, but you can think of this P. Was it Pij? Yeah, it is Pij. So in general, if this probability were high, and then it means it co-occurred more number of times than the other, right? So in that case, if we imagine their kind of window-based, prediction-based gradient descent updating, and then we will slide through them, right? And then more co-occurring kind of patterns will go through more kind of updating, right? And that means we will try to fit their relationships much more closely than the rarer kind of co-occurring patterns, right? So that way, in that case, we do the same updating like with multiple times, but here in this case, we do the same updating only once, but we put the higher weights so that if frequently co-occurring kind of patterns, and then their kind of error. So suppose this probability was 0.3, and then this was 0.2, and then we are incurring the error of 0.1, and then maybe 1, and then 1.5, and then 0.05, right? In this case, so this guy and this guy, I mean, they don't have the same weight because this one is a more co-occurring, more frequently co-occurring pattern, right? And thus, in our gradient descent based updating, so we will update that relationships much more number of times than the other one, right? So in this case, we update for this guy and this guy just equal with an equal number of an updating kind of count, okay? But we assign different weight to contribute to our loss function. So if it is like a 10 and 1, for example, and then the error occurring here, like 0.2 and 0.01, 0.05. So this one will be much kind of enlarged and then added to as a really large value by just multiplying it by 10 into our objective function, right? So that way,
함수가 구체적으로 정해져 있나요?
네, F 함수요? 요게 F 함수. 코어커링 하는 그게 커지면 커질수록 하여튼 더 많이 나타났을 거고, 걔네들 더 많이 업데이트 했을 거고, 그걸 이제 한 번씩만 업데이트 하되, 이제 업데이트 할 때 좀 더 걔네들을 더 정확하게 혹은 더 거기서 발생한 에러를 좀 더 심각하게 보고 업데이트를 하도록 하자. 그러나 업데이트 하는 횟수는 다 또 동일하게 하자. 이렇게 해서 중복을 줄이자. 뭐 약간 요게. 네. 그러고요. 그게 뭐 논문에 보면 이제 뭐가 이렇게 좀 로그를 다시 이렇게 좀 이렇게 하면, 그러니까 A가 뭐 로그의 Pij다. 그러면 이제 뭐 당연히 알다시피 A가 Pij가 되잖아요. 그래서 이게 뭔가 비율로 저 어떤 probability를 정의를 해요. 네, 그래서 좀 그거는 그 글러브 논문을 보면은 좀 아마 나와 있지 않을까 싶은데 내 개인적으로는 뭐 크게 중요한 건 아닌 것 같아요. 뭐 이런저런 펑션 해보다 보니까 저걸 해봤더니 제일 잘 됐고 저거에 대한 어떤 좀 역으로 좀 뭔가 저게 어떤 관계에서 출발했을까를 뭔가 유도를 하지 않았을까 싶어요. 내 개인적인 생각. 지금 그리고 글러브를 여러 가지 소개하는 어떤 튜토리얼이나 뭐 강의 자료나 아니면 뭐 렉처나 이런 데서도 뭐 그 처음에 그 부분들을 막 설명을 해서 여기까지 오는 경우보다는 그냥 저렇게 했더니 뭐 좋더라. 그러니까 기본적으로 로그라는 게 이제 확률이 커지면 커질수록 그 커지는 효과를 그냥 같은 비율로 생각하는 게 아니라 이렇게 좀 어테뉴에이트를 하겠다는 뜻이거든요. 그러니까 뭐 10번 프리컨트리 나타나는 패턴이 있고 100번, 1000번 프리컨트리 나타나는 패턴이 있으면 걔네들은 10배씩으로 우리가 더 고를 해줘야 되는데 사실 로그를 취하면 이게 확 차이가 줄어들죠. 그러니까 더 같은 경우는 엄청 자주 나타났을 건데 걔가 많이 나타났기 때문에 걔를 더 많이 업데이트를 해주는 거는 내가 그렇게 하겠으나 그게 뭐 한 100만 번 나타났다고 해서 뭐 예를 들면 뭐 1000번 나타난 애들에 비해서 뭐 크게 그렇게 뭐 엄청나게 많은 비율로 내가 더 신경을 쓰지는 않겠다. 그런 식으로의 로그 펑션을 취한 거고 웨이트 펑션도 역시 마찬가지.
여기서 식이 이제 F를 제외한 나머지 식 같은 경우에는 카운트 베이스랑 다이렉트 프리딕션은 두 개를 어떻게 같이 나눈 거잖아요. 근데 지금 F 펑션 같은 경우는 이제 카운트 베이스에 대한 그 이제 나오는 이제 변수를 집어넣어서 F에 의해서 이제 뽑아내는 건데 그거를 다이렉트 프리딕션에까지 연관을 시켜가지고 그렇게 가정을 하는 게 맞는 건지.
그냥 뭐 그게 관계가 이렇게 뭐 직접적으로 뭐 논리적으로 딱 그렇게 타이트한 관계가 있는 건 나도 아닌 것 같아. 지금 그냥 원래 SVD는 혹은 매트릭스 팩토라이제이션이나 아니면은 네, 그 SVD 같은 경우 그 일단은 코어 커런스 매트릭스를 만들어 놓고 그냥 그걸 다 동일하게 웨이트를 줘서 거기서 나타난 에러들을 취급을 해요. 그러니까 어떻게 보면 이 부분이 다 1인 거예요. 이게 무슨 소리냐면 하도 여기저기를 그거 해갖고 그게 어딘가 모르겠네. 네, 이런 거. 그러니까 이게 각각의 엘리먼트에서 발생한 에러들은 다 제곱을 해서 가중치는 다 똑같죠. 그냥 다 더해지는 거죠. 그러니까 저 말은 조 엘리먼트 각각의 저런 엘리먼트들에서 발생한 에러들이 다 동일한 어떤 가중치, 동일한 중요도를 가진다는 뜻이에요. 근데 이제 word2vec에서 보면 더 많이 발생이 됐을수록 더 이렇게 하여튼 그레디언트 디센트에서 더 많이 보여지고 걔네들 더 많이 업데이트를 했을 거니까 그 말은 걔를 한 방에 업데이트를 하되 걔에 대한 에러는 좀 더 다른 애들을 내가 좀 더 신경 써서 맞추는 거기에 에러보다 그러니까 어떻게 보면 웨이트가 작다. 여기에 걸리는 웨이트가 작다. 그럼 여기는 좀 큰 에러가 발생이 돼도 되고 여기에 걸리는 웨이트가 컸다. 그럼 여기서 발생하는 건 조금만 에러가 발생해도 확 커지기 때문에 거기는 내가 최대한 좀 신경 써서 최대한 맞춰줘야 되는 거잖아요. 그게 기본적으로는 어떤 그레디언트 디센트, 스타캐스틱 그레디언트 디센트에서 쭉쭉쭉 이렇게 윈도우 지나가면서 할 때에 나타나는 과정과 동일하다는 거예요. 그러니까 한 벡터를 내가 10번 업데이트하는 놈과 어떤 애는 뭐 가끔 한 번 나가고 한 번만 업데이트한 놈. 그럼 한 번만 업데이트한 놈은 당연히 뭐 동일한 스텝 사이즈, 그러니까 그레디언트 디센트에서 동일한 스텝 사이즈를 가지고 업데이트를 하면 걔는 덜 부정확하겠죠. 다른 애 10번이 나와서 업데이트를 하는 애는 좀 더 정확할 거고. 그렇기 때문에 이제 그런 웨이트들을 저쪽 가중치로 카운트 베이스드의 저런 기법에다가 적용해 주죠. 또 다른 질문 있어요? 네. 다음 랜덤이에요. 네, 처음에.
근데 저 PIJ가 결국에는 8분에서 8분의 5처럼 분수로 들어가거든요. 근데 로그로 하면은 저 부분이 음수가 되면 차이 저 텀에 의미하는 게 디퍼런스가 없는
좋은 지적이에요. 좋은 지적이고 이제 이거는 정확하게 워드 임베딩 그거는 아니고요. 그 글로브 논문 한번 뭐 좀 봐도 좋을 것 같아요. 한번 좀 보면 좋을 것 같고, 이게 실제로는 여기에 bi 플러스 bj라는 텀이 껴있어요. 즉 이게 각 워드마다 가지는 바이어스에 해당하는 벡터가 저렇게 따로 있어요. 네. 그럼 말이 되나? 네, 말이 되죠. 대충 말이 되죠. 네. 저게 이제 파지티브를 올려주는 거예요. 네거티브 확률. 실제로는 저걸 풀어요. 또 Okay, so training fast. Okay, and so count-based method, because count-based method is first computing all the statistics before actually starting to gradient descent. Because yeah, so in that sense, yeah, it can be considered as more scalable. I mean, count-based is more scalable to the larger data than the direct prediction methods. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I think I have to stop here, and let me just before ending here, let's see. So I tried to I wanted to show a lot more today, but maybe next time, and then so. Yeah, here's one last simple announcement. Yeah, in 30 minutes in the 우정정보통신관 602, yeah, there is a seminar about given by Daehyung Park, who is doing the major on the robotics. Okay, so yep. So if you're interested, please attend it. Yeah, thank you very much. 네. 네.
혹시 지난주 퀴즈 잘 진출됐는지 한번.
지난주 퀴즈는 그거를 카운트 안 하면서.
네. 네, 알겠습니다.
교수님 혹시 저 처음 지금 자연스러운 공부해보고 있는데 퀴즈 보고 헷갈리는 몇 가지 있어가지고 네, 그래서 이번에서요 그 카운트 베이스드 메서드가 이제 글로브가 더 스케일러블하고 카운트 베이스드 메서드가 덜 스케일러블하고
글로브가 카운트 베이스예요.
글로브 카운트
네,
베이스드
왜냐하면 코어커링 매트릭스 PIJ라는 거를 먼저 만들어서 계산을 하니까.
그럼 워드2vec이 아니라
네.
카운트 베이스드 메서드
카운트 베이스. 이런 워드2vec에서 쓰이는 그걸 좀 가져왔다고는 하는데 그게 이제 PIJ라는 그 웨이팅에 있는 거고.
그렇죠. 잘못 이해하고 있어갖고 그러면 그 글로브에서 그 F가 넌리니어잖아요.
네.
그러면 그것도 워드2vec에 해당하는 사항이 아니라
그게 이제 워드2vec에서 이제 여러 번 나타났으면 여러 번 업데이트를 하니까
네.
카운트 베이스에는 여러 번 업데이트를 안 하고 다 동일한 가중치로 업데이트를 할 건데
네.
여러 번 업데이트 할 거를 그 웨이팅으로 갖고 온 거예요. 그래서 여러 번 할 거를 한 번만 하고 이제 가중치를 더 많이 주는 약간 이런 식으로.
그러면 그게 워드2vec이라고 볼 수는 없는 거예요.
네. 서로 다른 이제 월드 인베딩 벡터가 돼요. 월드 인베딩 테크닉이 돼요.
선생님 제가 그 정정 때 들어서 그러는데 혹시 비율이 얼마나 되나요?
비율?
그러니까
그럼요.
비율이
아마 실라버스 거기에 뭔가 있을 텐데 아마 이게 텀 프로젝트는 아마도 없는 걸로 그때 이야기를 했고요.
네.
적당히 나눠져 있어요. 중간 기말 보고
네.
퀴즈 또 보고 또 이제 숙제 또. 네.
네, 알겠습니다. 감사합니다.
네. Okay, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Because what that I have given is wrong. GloVe uses actually the count based.
Yeah, right. Yeah. GloVe is count based.
Speed is also count
Yeah.
based. But in the slide it was mentioned not scalable. Anyway. But
it is using SVD, I mean eigen decomposition based method, and so that algorithm itself has also some limited scalability, but it's much better than the just prediction based, like that goes through the individual kind of word center context word pairs. Yeah, it is really slow because we have to go through individual word pairs.
Yes, now it is clear.
Yeah.
Professor, I want may see is it my score that
Which
is
one?
it is working or not.
The score?
I just sent, but
Yeah, you can search for it, right?
yes, yes.
Okay. Okay.
그 글로브에서
네.
이렇게 트레이닝 할 때 배치 사이즈가 그 사실 저 모든 쌍에 대한 턴 프리퀀시 다
네.
쌍으로 포함하면은 그 엄청 많은
네.
사이즈가 나오잖아요.
네.
그러면은
워드2vec에서.
네.
네.
그런 사이즈를 그냥 기본적으로 저희가 기본적으로 한 100, 200 정도 배치
네.
사이즈를 주고 보통 트레이닝.
그런 거 같은데 word2vec은 이게 기본적인 뭐 우리가 뭐 텐서플로우, 파이토치 뭐 이런 걸로 이제 구현을 하는 게 아니라요. 걔만의 좀 굉장히 스페셜한 그 C로 이렇게 임플리멘트된 코드가 있어요. 걔를 통해서 이제 굉장히 빠르게 좀 연산을 좀 하거든요.
네.
그래서 거기서도 아마 네, 배치 사이즈는 아마도 있지 않을까 싶어요. 네.
그러면 CPU로도 그냥 바로
CPU로도 할 수 있는데 이제 느리긴 하죠. CPU가 훨씬 더 빠를 거예요. 네.
그리고
배치 사이즈 거의 1000인가 그럴 거예요.
글로브를
모델이 간단하니까 파라미터가 적으니까 뭐 큰
글로브를 만들어 봤는데
네.
너무 배치 사이즈 비례해서 너무
글러브가?
네,
글러브가? 글러브는 배치 사이즈에 상관이 없어야 될 텐데.
그러니까 아예 워드 단위로 한 건 아니고 다른 방식, 다른 태스크에 적용을 해봤는데 생각보다 배치 사이즈가 100, 200 정도로 하면 너무 사이즈가 트레인하는 게 커지길래 좀
글로브에서 내가 그러니까 배치 사이즈가 어떻게 사용되는지 윈도우 사이즈는
이게
있을 수 있는데
쪽 같이 등장한 단어들 다 탐색해야 되니까
네.
근데 그거는 그 워드 그 인덱싱, 그러니까 워드 해싱만 되면 그 뭐 n 스퀘어가 아니라 그냥 쭉 리니어하게 가면서
그래서 아마 해싱으로 적용하면 좀 빠르겠다.
근데 내부적으로 뭔가 해싱이 돼 있지 않을까 싶은데 모르겠네요. 그게. 네. 네.
그
네.
요거 강의 보면서 생각한 건데 그
네.
보통 닥투백은 스킬그램 기반이잖아요.
네.
그래서 약간 제가 그 예전에 구현한 그거는 약간 그
네.
글로벌 닥투백처럼 이렇게 만든 것처럼 할 수 있지 않을까요?
닥투백과 글로브를 합친다.
예,
네.
그래서 아까 교수님 말씀하신 것처럼 턴 다큐멘트 매트릭스도 윈도우 사이즈가 다큐멘트
네.
사이즈만큼이 코어 커런스 매트릭스라고 볼 수 있으니까
네.
그걸 기반으로 약간 다큐멘트 인베딩한 거 같아요.
네, 한번 그 오브젝트 펑션 한번 좀 만들어 볼래요, 그러면? 네. 이것도 뭐 흥미로운 방향일 것 같은데요. 네.
저는 근데 저렇게 한 번에
네.
인베딩 하지 않고 각각 다 워드들 하나하나를 다 이터레이션 돌면서 이렇게 학습을 했었는데
그렇게 해봤어요?
네, 근데 그렇게 해도
네.
잘 나오긴 했었어요.
네. 그렇군요. 신기하네요. 네, 뭐 한번 잘 발전시켜 보던가요.